Welcome to The Right Atmosphere, podcast for writers, brought to you by Atmosphere Press, the only publisher that puts rewarding and meaningful author experiences above all else. I'm your host, Hala Alawi. On this episode, we'll be talking about MFA programs with our guest, Rhonda Zimlich. Rhonda is the director of the MFA in Creative Writing program at American University in Washington, D.C. She writes about intergenerational trauma and the unbreakable spirit of youth. Her debut novel, Raising Panic, won the Steel Toe Books 2023 Book Award for Prose. Other works have appeared in Brevity, Past 10, American Writers Review. She was awarded the 2020 Literary Award in Nonfiction from Dogwood, a journal of poetry and prose at Fairfield University. The same essay earned her an honorable mention in Best American Essays. She received the 2021 Fiction Award from Please See Me and the 2024 Nonfiction Award from Barely South Review at Old Dominion University. Thank you so much for joining me, Rhonda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm glad to hear it because, something that I hear from many writers, both that I work with and that I socialize with, is, no matter what educational background they're coming from, there's tends to be this point where you're wondering, should I get an MFA? It's a huge decision. And just like with any decision, it's important for writers to be informed, to help them figure out if that's the right fit for them before they get involved. So as director of the MFA in Creative Writing program at American University, I think you're an excellent person for me to ask. What are the benefits of being in an MFA program and of getting that degree?
Yeah, this is a great question and a great place to start in this conversation. I think that there are three key benefits, and while each individual will come up with maybe other benefits, the ones that are key are community, working with professional writers, folks who have their own publications, have lots of experience in writing, and then also having your own dedicated time for craft. So I would say having a community is key, working not only with professional writers, but other students of writing, maybe people who are in the same place as you are in writing, pursuing that dream, and then working with other professional writers. This is wonderful with students when they first come into an MFA program to be with writers who have books out in the world and are, treating students as professional writers as well. Maybe the first time a student is being treated as a professional writer and getting that boost of confidence, I think can be really uplifting for a student in an MFA program. And then having that dedicated time for craft, that accountability, which is, I think one of the biggest benefits of an MFA program. You have to turn in pages. You have to sit in the chair and put the words on the page and get the writing done.
Yeah, I think that accountability is what a lot of people think of first, when they think of a program. I mean, it's school, right?
Yep.
But the community aspect that you mentioned, I think, is also huge, especially in, a field where workshops are such a critical part of the writing process. And of course, also getting that professionalism aspect. I think that's an important thing to touch on too. So, something kind of related, I know that you have some knowledge on this as well. What would you say are the key differences between traditional MFA programs, which is, what you direct at American University, compared to low residency MFA programs?
Yeah, this is such a great question in this day and age because there are so many different ways to get to that final goal and to have that MFA in your hand, to have that accomplishment. So even though I do teach in a very traditional, long-standing program, I'm a person who went through a low residency MFA program. I earned my degree
Wow.
while teaching at the University of Oregon. I earned my MFA through Vermont College of Fine Arts, and I flew across the country, a couple of times a year, and I worked with amazing writers and had 10 days of immersive time in this low residency program with amazing fellow student writers. And it was an incredible experience. I loved it. They're still going strong, even though their program has moved around the United States in a couple of different places. It was a really incredible experience. Now, shifting gears and working in, a permanent MFA program where these are faculty members who are here on campus. You can stop by their office hours. I'm a faculty member who's in my office regularly. Students come by and see me. We do things like we have events on campus with visiting writers that are coming and going, and, a busy, robust campus atmosphere. One of the, longest standing programs on the East Coast, the only MFA program in Washington, D.C., in the district itself. It's definitely very different from a low residency. So we're involved with campus, we're involved with the undergraduate program in creative writing, and it's different in many, many ways. So students will come here, they don't live in the dorms, but they do live in the district. We have professional students that are maybe a little bit older, non-traditional. We do have students that come directly from undergraduate, and in some ways it's very similar, but in some ways it's different. The other thing that we have that is different is we have a teaching track. So students that come to American University can opt to teach in our writing studies program, and that's an incredible opportunity. And I did not have that in my low residency program. And
Gotcha.
yeah, that's a really wonderful opportunity for our MFA students that they can take advantage of. So
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of low residency programs have that opportunity.
Yeah. I think even outside of writing, there are definitely some grad degrees that could afford to have more of that teaching track
Yeah.
type of thing available. But something you mentioned made me curious. You said that there are writers that are coming in straight from undergrad that are coming later in their career. Is there a time when it's quote unquote too late to get an MFA?
Oh, I don't think so. And in fact, I've seen students pursue MFA into their 70s, probably.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I have a friend back in Oregon, and I'm not exactly how sure how old she is, but I want to say she's in her late 70s, and she's always thought about it. And I keep encouraging her, and I hope that one day she decides to go after it. It's never too late. I don't think it's ever too late. I think it's something,
Yeah.
if it's something you want to do, it's something that you certainly should do. I was 40 years old when I decided to go back and get my MFA. So definitely
Okay.
something that,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I
That's
wasn't
really
alone. I had a cohort of women that were my age, and we all still stay in
oh,
contact with each other.
okay, great. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
think, you hear these stories about people who return to school later and then feel kind of like on their own, they're surrounded by a bunch of, comparatively to them, it feels like young kids, but clearly it's not like a rare situation. And I think that probably makes it feel a lot more approachable, a lot more welcoming if that is
Yeah.
something you want to return to.
In the
Education
last
is
few
forever.
years at American University in our MFA program, we've had professionals coming into our program that have spent time already as lawyers. We had one of our graduate students had spent 10 years in broadcasting, so we've had some folks that have come back after having great professional careers and decided that they wanted to pursue the creative dream that they maybe thought about it after their undergrad and decided to do something a little more professional at first instead.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's flexible is what I'm
Sure.
kind of getting out of this, which I think is fantastic, a really great thing for people to keep in mind. And as people are thinking, Do I want to apply to an MFA? Is this something I seriously want to pursue? What kinds of questions do you think writers should ask themselves before they submit an application?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think, a lot of MFAs are not partially or fully funded. So is
Oh,
the
that's huge.
expense, yeah, is the expense realistic for you and for your family? Is that something that you're willing to take on? Um, Especially in this day and age where, we've lost access to things like the Grad Plus loan program. So
Mhm.
really consider that expense, looking around at programs that have funding available and asking those questions. Something that I'll even tell our applicants is that if you get accepted at multiple schools, see if the school that is the top choice on your list, if they're willing to negotiate with the merit package that they've offered you, because a lot of schools are, and students don't know that. So maybe you've been offered a little bit of money at your second choice school, and you can go back to your first choice school and say, hey, second choice school gave me X amount of dollars. Can you match or beat it? Because I'd really like to come here first. And that is something that if you don't know, you can ask your school to do that, and it doesn't hurt to ask. The other thing I would say is if you're going to have to relocate, make sure that it's a place where you can live for 2 to 3 years and live comfortably. If it's a place that you're going to be happy spending time in that environment, because if you're not going to be happy there, if you're not going to be able to, be comfortable there, you may not be able to write there.
Yeah.
I loved being in Vermont and I could write and write there. And I still write about Vermont. And now I travel to Vermont and that part of the country because I love being there. I found that I really love that part of the country. And, I could write there and write there, I just love being there. So it's a choice, right? So
Yeah.
the financial, geographic, I would also, if you have family, I had small children and I needed to make sure that it was going to be okay with my kiddos that I was going to be gone
Mm,
for a low residency. I wouldn't have been able to go into a full program at the time, which is why low residency was something that I looked at. Um,
gotcha.
you
Yeah.
know. And now, I mean, if I would have waited until my kids were off to college, I think I could have done a long-term program, but I didn't want to wait. I wanted it then, and I'm grateful that I didn't wait. I'm grateful that I did it when I did it, So I
Good.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, just asking yourself those questions. And I'll tell you something else that I found really, really helpful was I talked to people that had the degree and I said, what worked for you and what did you go through when you were trying to make this decision? And they told me their experience. And that I found very helpful. So seek out those folks and ask them what their experience was. And, people were all too happy to share that with me.
Yeah. And just to mention, listening to this who wants to be able to do that and maybe doesn't know anyone personally who's in an MFA program, reach out to the faculty at a school you're interested in. They'll be able to put you in touch with people so you can get that perspective.
Absolutely. And you can find those folks easily by just going to the faculty page and clicking on their email.
Right. It's right all right there for you. It's
That's
perfect.
right.
Before we say goodbye to our guest, I'm happy to say that this episode is brought to you by Atmosphere Press, the only publisher that puts rewarding and meaningful author experiences above all else. Founded in 2015 by an author and PhD in literature, and devoted to serving authors through editorial, design, publication, and promotion, Atmosphere has sold tens of thousands of copies of their authors' books across 6 continents. Visit atmospherepress.com to sign up for Atmosphere's newsletter, The Launchpad, and to learn about submission opportunities, event news, and free book, publicity, and writing residency giveaways. Well, Rhonda, where should our listeners go to learn more about you and what it is that you do?
You can find me on the American University faculty webpage for the MFA program or the literature faculty, or I have a website that's rhondazimlich.com. And I do answer email. I love it when I get email from folks that, come across one of my essays or short stories. And I'm always around we call it the DMV here in Washington, D.C. I'm pretty active in the area. I'll also be at the AWP conference that's coming up in Baltimore this March.
Yeah.
Big writers conference. Will Atmosphere Press be there this year?
Yes, Atmosphere will
Great.
be
I'll look
there.
for you all. That'll be a wonderful,
Yeah,
wonderful event for us all.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much again, Rhonda.
Of
We'll
course.
see you
Thanks
at
for having me.
AWP.
I love your press and I love what you all are doing.
Oh, thank you so much. It means a lot to hear.
Sure.
Well, I hope to see you in person in Baltimore. But in the
Great.
meantime, thank you again. And thanks to all the listeners for tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Right Atmosphere, the Advice for Writers podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave a review and share this podcast with the writers in your life. And if you're ready to take the next step in your publication journey, visit atmospherepress.com to submit your manuscript for publication consideration or to learn more about writing and what it is that we do. I'm Hala. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.